Hey, what's up, guys? You have found the interview that I did with Mike Vacanti of OnTheRegimen.com and the personal trainer of the one and only Gary Vaynerchuk. If you don't know who Gary is, I'll put a link up here so you can check out his channel as well. If you're an entrepreneur or anyone in business, you need to check out Gary's work. But anyways, Mike is his trainer and also works with clients online. Mike actually coached me and got me in super awesome shape for my wedding. But I had the opportunity of working with Mike that one time, and then had him on the podcast as well. We talked a lot in this episode about training, about life, about diet, a little about poker as well. But this is a great episode. I hope you guys really enjoy this, and don't forget to check out the description below, where you can get links to Mike's website, my website, sidequestfitness.com, as well as find out how to subscribe on Stitcher and subscribe on iTunes. And I'll put a link down there for Gary Vaynerchuk's channel as well, because, again, you should be watching Gary's videos. But anyways, enjoy this episode. And if you are a lover of ice cream, you will love Mike Vacanti. So I'll just leave you with that. All right, guys, welcome to the show. It's Robbie here. Another episode of SideQuest Podcast, the unofficial podcast of Fitocracy. If you have not gone to iTunes and hit the subscribe button and left us a review, as soon as you get done listening to this episode, I would greatly appreciate you going over there. Just type it in, great show, love the guests, hit enter, submit, and then hit subscribe. Helps us move up the charts so more people can hear all the great guests that we have going on here. If you want to start following us on Twitter, check us out at SideQuestFM. Also on Instagram at SideQuestFM. Also, you can check out our webpage at www.sidequestpodcast.com. All the interviews go up there, as well as the blog and some fun stuff as well. And you can also check us out on Facebook, SideQuest Podcast. You can like us there, chat with us, leave me a message, let me know what you think. And we're growing there slowly but surely. I have a great guest for you today. He is a trainer in New York City, does lots of great writing out there, and I consider him a friend. He is the man who got me into the best shape of my life for my wedding a few months ago. The one and the only Mike Vacanti. Mike, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem. So many people have probably heard me mention your name a few times in a couple different episodes. You were the man who ran the Romans 16 Weeks to Sectionist program, which got me ready for the wedding and into the great shape that I was in. Scotland then destroyed all of that great shape. Haggis is the greatest thing ever invented. It's like sausage, but better. Anyways, so I just wanted to get you on the show because you were voted one of the top 5 people in the fitness industry, taking the industry by storm by Fitocracy. So my goal is to get all 5. I've had you on the show. I've had Knuckles. I've had Adam, and I got 2 more that I'm working on. They'll be on soon. So I want to thank you for coming on. But for those who may not know who Mike Vacanti is, who is Mike Vacanti, and how did you get to New York City and become a trainer?
So again, super pumped to be here. And you were I remember during the 16 weeks, the 4 months of coaching, the video updates that you would do, just injected life into the group. A lot of online coaching is via text, whether it's email or on the Fitocracy platform, which is amazing. And there's a lot of communication from the coaches via video, but not as much from the clients. And right. You would submit these 3 to 5 minute videos that were just amazing. Made my week every time. Got a big deadlift. Okay, so I had to give you a little credit there. Who am I? I moved out to New York City after quitting my accounting job in 2012. So I'm a CPA. I worked 2 years at a big firm out of college in Minnesota. Hated my job. I quit without any real plan of what I was going to do. Not really knowing that like online coaching was a thing, or that fitness blogs were a way for someone to sustain a living, or had the kind of reach and could help as many people as you can online. I just quit because I hated accounting so much. I moved around, played poker for money at the time, like I did in college. Spent some time in Vancouver, a couple cities in the U.S., and then when John Romanello posted an opportunity for an internship in New York City, like, had to be local, have to be like in a certain age range, passionate about fitness. Basically, he wanted someone that he could groom in his footsteps, who could help him, but then do what he was doing, which is exactly what I wanted. So I abused him on all fronts, like Facebook, emailing. I hit up his assistant, and I ended up getting an interview the next day, booked a one-way ticket that afternoon to New York, and I've been here since.
That's ballsy. A one-way ticket with no. So what would have happened? What would you have done if you'd got to that Starbucks? I'm assuming it was probably at a Starbucks, because everyone in New York City, if it's not in an office, you're going to interview in a Starbucks.
It was at a Starbucks. You're absolutely correct.
Well, when I sold stuff on Craigslist, I was like, what's the safest place to meet people at? Starbucks. So what would you have done if he had been like, I don't think this fit is right for you? Would you have just been like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to stay in New York City and just and grind it and make a living? Or would you have gone back to Minnesota?
I never thought about this until probably a year after, when I was asked the question. But the what if really never entered my mind. And now in hindsight, I can answer it, and I wouldn't have stayed out here. I would have moved back. And I had started my blog about a month prior, so I think I would have been writing and still trying to grind to build a following, to acquire clients in person, to put out content that helped people. But working under Roman expedited the learning curve so much that I'm 100% sure that I wouldn't even be like 10% of where I am now had that not panned out. And yeah, luckily it went well at that Lower West Side Starbucks at 8 a.m. back like a year and a half ago. So super grateful.
Yeah, well, I mean, I struggled with the idea of moving to New York before my then girlfriend, now wife, both of us decided, small town, let's do it. We got theater degrees, let's like actually pursue New York. And I thought about LA, and then I thought about New York, and I had that thought where I was like, you know what, just do it. Like, you got a little bit of money, just go. Even if you grind it out and you end up being broke and poor like 90% of the people in New York City, and you got to come home, at least you did it. At least you tried. And I survived 2 years before my poor country boy heart was like, I need trees and fresh air and ability to get out. And
I miss that so much. Like, just space and room to move.
I don't think people realize, like, so many people like here in Richmond are like, oh, New York City, it's so beautiful, I love it, I wish I could live there. And I want to say to them, it's the saying is, it's a great place to live, it's a shitty place to survive. Yeah. Because it's so hard. Everything is so much more expensive, and you got to be on the train at the worst times or the best times, and it drains you, and it will break you if you let it break you, but it can be beautiful at the same time. But Central Park is so nice, but at times you kind of realize that you're boxed in by these skyscrapers, and I'm like, but I want to get out where there's mountains, and I can just see mountains. And for me, that's I felt trapped, and much like the city rats, I was like, I gotta get out.
I completely understand. Every time I visit my family back in Minnesota, I appreciate the open roads and ability to drive, and just the air feels cleaner. It is. It's a super big and busy city that has a ton of upside, but can also wear you down over time.
Yeah, and that's I do miss aspects of it, and there are other things I do. The things I do miss are like, you know what? It's 9 o'clock. I wish I had someone who could deliver me food that's not Domino's. Oh wait, I'm in New York City. I can totally have anyone deliver me anything.
Seamless, absolutely.
I don't even think Seamless exists where I am. Yeah. All right. So I got a couple questions for you from your writing. Because I love everything that you write. I think there's a lot.
You didn't have to say that.
No. I mean, everyone I've read so far. My wife told me the other day as I read. I was asked to be best man in a wedding a couple weeks ago, and I read her the toast that I gave, and she was like, you're a really good writer, and I'm like, really? Because I feel like when I write blog posts for the website, I feel like I just sound like an 8-year-old who's trying to write like Shakespearean poetry to the girl he's in love with, and it sounds awful. And so I enjoy stuff when I read it and it makes sense and it kind of hits me in the right place. And a lot of your stuff does that, because I was reading through stuff last night and I'm like, man, this guy hated his job. Like I hate maybe I should just man up. And you had a thing where it said you're only as much of a man as the decisions that you make or the risks that you take. And that's sitting on the back burner and has been for the last 24 hours, kind of simmering there in my mind. But one of the ones that I really loved was you talked about Arnold's 6 rules, and you posted that video. And this is from a 2009 commencement speech that he did at USC. Mm-hmm. And I'll post this in the show notes for everyone, because I honestly believe this is one of those things that you have to see. And Arnold does a great job of like living up to the persona that he kind of has of like get to the chopper, and everyone is like, oh, we love Arnold. But he is one of the most intelligent and well-spoken individuals that I have like ever listened to.
Absolutely. Well, and they cut up the speech, which was 20 minutes or something. In a 4-minute video, you add music, like a movie score, Hans Zimmer time, or whatever they throw over. And it's just like, you're just so amped up to do whatever you're about to do, whether it's go deadlift or like tell your boss to fuck off or anything.
Well, I enjoyed his 6 rules because I'm listening to him and I'm like, man, this is just like, this should be common sense to everyone. And his 6 rules are: 1, trust yourself; 2, break the rules; 3, don't be afraid to fail; 4, ignore the naysayers; 5, work like hell; and 6, give something back. And everything I read, in your numerous posts kind of touch on at least some aspect of those 6 rules. So which one of those rules do you believe is the most important to you that you strive to apply to your daily life?
So they're all really good, obviously. And I think a couple are more applicable than others. But the first one, trust yourself, is what I have found to be the most important, or I saw the greatest change from following, that I was the most scared to do, which is, we all have a voice in our head, like this little voice that tells us things. We talk to ourselves, and a lot of people ignore that voice because like they're afraid, which isn't anything to be embarrassed about. I'm afraid of a ton of things, like fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of what are other people going to think if I take XYZ unconventional route or I try something new. But if you have a strong intuition and you feel in your gut, in your head, that you're supposed to be doing something, trusting that small little spark of a feeling and going with it is what has created like the best and happiest and moments and things in my life that I'm the most proud of. So option 1, I like work like hell is a gift in anything. The harder you work, the better results you're going to see. And then number 6, too, giving back, like the satisfaction and just sense of good and right that I get, at least when I do charitable type work, or just like compliment someone or say something nice to someone in everyday life. Like that feels good.
The idea of trusting ourselves, I guess that I feel like this year, my wife and I were talking about this last night. I feel like 2014 has been like a very introspective year for me, and I know that, like, yes, I got married, and I don't want to sound like I'm the typical guy who's like, oh God, I'm getting married, I have to rethink my entire life. But it happened. Like, it kind of does, because society says that you're supposed to do this certain thing and you're supposed to feel this certain way, and now you're getting married. And I grew up in a very conservative Southern household where the man provides and he does right by his woman, and all the things that I feel like America and our generation is kind of fighting against, or trying to at least mold into our own meaning. So I think trusting yourself is something that's really hard to do, and it's hard for anyone to do and make that decision, especially when it comes to, like, I want to get in shape, I want to get out of debt, I want to do something better, I want to pursue my dream. Is there, like, do you still struggle with trusting yourself, or does it get easier each time that you kind of trust yourself more?
It definitely gets easier, but it's something that's still at the forefront of my mind, and something that I have to force myself to do every single time. It's like I'm trying to think of a specific example, and I'm not coming up with anything. But like taking on Gary as a client, who is someone who I train in the gym every single day. He's my one client in the gym, and I travel with him. I am in his office where he runs his 400-person agency in New York City, like cooking his lunch and then giving it to him and making sure he eats it every day and making sure that protein, fat, and carbs are on point for the training day. And like, boom, just literally, I am his right hand. The CEO of his body is what I think. But I was really afraid to take that on, because I was scared to spend 6 hours a day in an office setting. And I was scared that, like, just listening to myself rather than thinking of external opinions or what other people think of making a decision still impacts a lot of my choices. Yes.
Okay. Is it weird now that you're kind of like back in an office situation? You're like, wait a minute, I quit this like 3 years ago. What am I doing?
So there's actually not much of that, which I'm super lucky about. One, it's so low key, like it's so casual, and an accounting firm that has, like, you're on site with the clients a lot versus a creative agency that does social media marketing for companies under a guy who runs a company with an amazing corporate culture. Like, I wear sweatpants and trainer stuff to the office, and I'm known as like, oh yeah, Gary's trainer guy who like gives him food. That's really weird. Why is he here? Like, I'm not in the office politics or like the hierarchy or anything like that. So no, it's not weird. It's actually fun for me, but I was afraid that it might be.
Okay. So I did have a couple questions on Gary, and if for listeners that don't know, Gary is Gary. I'm not going to pronounce his last name because I would probably screw it up.
Vaynerchuk.
I like how he pronounces it on his show, and I'm like, oh, that's a great way to, like, you break it up. It does kind of make sense.
Vaynerchuk.
So Gary V is if anyone out there who has not watched a YouTube video from this guy, he may be one of the most intense and like inspiring people that like you could ever watch. He just the fire that burns in him and just the flames that come out of his mouth and the energy that he has is mind blowing. So I was thinking about that, and you wrote a post about how you had trained him for a while, and then he came up with this idea of, Mike, we're going to do something every day. Doesn't matter what it is, we're going to do something every day. And a lot of the people that I've talked to lately on the show, talk about falling in love with the process. Mm-hmm. And as I feel like that's something a lot of people may not understand and doesn't make a lot of sense to people. But from an artist standpoint, and from my background as a theater major and having a degree in that, is you go to the movies, you go to the theater, you see the final product. Mm-hmm. And for all of us, we're all like, I want to be Tom Hanks and I want to give that performance. But you don't realize that the most you learn about yourself and your talent is through the process and the rehearsal and the games that you play and the things you got to do to get there is really where you learn as an artist, and that's where you shine. Not once the lights come on stage, but what you've done in the process.
Yep.
So Gary's has been, a big thing for you. There was some failure, now there's some successes. So what have you learned from observing Gary's process that you may not have learned from your other clients or from your own process that you now kind of realize and want to apply to the future?
So one thing that that's hard to apply for a client unless you know them really well is setting up a program that actually truly fits their lifestyle. So that can be anything from training frequency to the length of training sessions to the type of training, to whether or not you have cheat days, whether you do 2 cheat meals a week or 1 huge blown out cheat day once every other week, whether you should weigh in every morning, whether you should weigh in once a week, whether you shouldn't step on the scale because it's going to screw you up mentally every single time. Like we are all so very different. And how I knew this, but what opened my eyes to it through Gary Vee was the way we set up. So for the first 60 days, or maybe it was 90 days, 2 to 3 months, he dropped a lot of body fat. He was what I would call skinny fat, around 5'8", in the 180s, mid 180s, and not a lot of lean mass. And so we started lifting, had him in a deficit, high protein, and he ended up in the low 160s, which was probably 5 to 6 pounds of glycogen, carb storage, water weight, but a solid 12 to 15 pounds of fat loss. And at that point, it was kind of like, okay, now we want to add muscle, but we want to do it in a way where you're not adding body fat as well. Let's do a form of recomp where we'll have certain days where you're in a surplus and you're training hard, and other days you're in a deficit. And I just threw Monday, Wednesday, Friday at him because that makes sense, right? Like that's a good 3 days a week. We'll eat big Monday, Wednesday, Friday, keep it light on the weekends and Tuesday, Thursday. Well, Gary literally wakes up at 6 a.m. every single day. We work out or bike or stretch or do yoga or something. And from 7:30 a.m. after he gets out of the shower until 11 or 12 or 1 o'clock, he's working. Like his calendar is blocked off in 15-minute increments all day with running his agency, his investments, he's meeting with people constantly. He has a dinner or 2 dinners every night, drinks from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. And so on a weekday, he doesn't want to eat a 500-calorie surplus. Like he can't even get that down. He's too busy. He's too on his grind. He's just like, food, I don't want to think about food. Don't bring me food. I'm busy. Whereas on the weekend, when I was trying to limit him to, 1,400 calories or whatever it was on that day, and super high protein, like eat lots of veggies, don't snack on anything, keep it really on point. The weekends are his time to relax. So he's with his kids, he's with his wife, he's with his family, parents or whatever, and he wants to snack and enjoy and relax. So after a couple weeks of why isn't this working, I realized, well, let's train Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday so he can eat a lot on those days when he's relaxing, and then keep calories super low during the week when he's just on his grind. So that was a super easy change that I could make that I'm not 100% sure I would have recognized in another client had I not had my finger to the pulse like I do with Gary.
Okay. All right. So I got to ask, because you mentioned it in a blog post that he said, Mike, you're missing a great opportunity here. So when's the book coming? I know you're keeping the data. I know that stung you, and you wrote a post about he's right. I should be. So when are we getting the New York Times bestselling author Mike Vacanti book?
If it happens, not anytime soon. I gave Gary a 2-year commitment. We're 6 months in, and I would be lying to you and to anyone who's listening if I said that is not on my mind and something that I'm not hungry for, because I am. And after he said that, I went back and I spent it was like a cross-country flight, so 6 hours just over caffeinated and going back through the schedule and the workout schedule, and I wrote, it was like 7,000 words or something, 9,000, I don't remember, but just recapping everything and every story I could remember and just getting it all down. And now after every workout, I'm taking notes. If this 2-year experience turns into something, or all of this writing I'm doing ends up being something that I think is valuable enough that it could be a book, or that people would want to read it, that people would benefit enough from it that it makes sense, then 2016 is mine.
All right. I'll keep an eye out for 2016 and make sure if the podcast is still going, that when you do release the book, we get you on here as part of a launch party. So speaking of books, so what book from this year, from 2014, would you gift to all of your friends and family if you could do it for Christmas?
So like right now,
like if, let's say you were like, oh man, I don't know what to get anyone, but you wanted to give out one book that meant a lot to you this year, what would that book be?
I love that you said from 2014, because it forces me to come up with a new answer every year. I can't just give my standard book that I do give. I'm going to grab it because I'm so close and I don't want to butcher the author's name too.
Okay.
So it's called Live Your Truth by Kamal Ravikant, who's I heard about him through James Altucher, and I think he's buddies with Tim Ferriss, and so through one of those guys, I heard of this. But it's a super short read, like 100 pages, big font, and it's written in a way that's very simple. It goes in line with the Arnold quote a lot: trust yourself. When you are putting your most honest and true self out to the world, that is when you're going to be the happiest. That is when you are going to be, I don't want to say the most comfortable, because often it's not comfortable, successful, and not in the terms of money or power or fame or anything like that, but successful in that the way you act is aligned with who you are and what you truly believe. And I just remember reading it in a couple hours, and I'm a slow reader, maybe 2 hours, and being really moved by it. So that, maybe I will give a few copies of that out now that I said that. Okay.
So you said there's one that you normally give out. What's the one that you normally give out?
It's not 2014, so I don't even want to give it. That one's called Your Best Year Yet, which is a super self-helpy, fill in the blanks while you're going with a pen type book, that the point of it is to make your next year your best year. And in the time after I quit my accounting job, I had moved back home with my parents at age 24, and I was there for a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And I was very nervous and anxious, and I didn't know what I wanted or what I wanted to do. It was the first time in my life I struggled with anxiety. And I read that book, and 3 days later, I was on a one-way plane out to Vancouver to play poker on the internet, because it wasn't legal in the U.S. at the time.
Don't even get me started. That one ticked me off when they passed that law, because my freshman year of college, we played poker every single night. Every single night we were playing poker. One of my good friends is actually dealing cards in Vegas right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, I don't even remember. He's jumped around to a few different places. But he was playing professionally for a while, and then he goes, dude, let me tell you, no 25-year-old kid should ever have $35,000 in cash in his hand because you do stupid things. And he got really dumb for a while, blew a bunch of money, and then had to start dealing. But I saw this kid. There were 3 of us one night. We went all in on a hand right after the turn, and before we all flipped our cards over, he goes, I'm going to call out every single card you guys have. Dead on to the suit. Nailed them.
This is your buddy who ended up dealing. That's who said this?
Yeah. Well, he went out to play for a while, and I asked him why he quit. He goes, well, one, he told me the $35,000 story. And then he goes, to be honest, when the economy tanked, people were like, oh, I can get this cheap book and learn how to play poker. And he was like, all of a sudden, Vegas was flooded with people who had just read these books, and they were just making calls that were like I couldn't risk the money because they're just doing crazy stuff. But he's like, the market got flooded, and I had to pull out for a little while because he just started losing too much.
It's definitely not easy mentally to have a job where you can play really well and lose, and then play really well the next day and lose, and you string days and weeks together like that, and it takes a huge toll on your psyche. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, God, I think I put $25 in once online and felt awful because I lost $25.
You wake up the next morning and you're like a little bit sick. And you're like, did that really happen last night?
A little bit. But I should feel that way when it comes to fantasy football because God knows I've not won anything. I almost, the last 4 games went, you know what, screw it. At least I'll get the last place trophy and have to, prominently put that on my mantle for a year. At least I'll win something. All right, so I did have a poker question for you. So now that we mentioned poker, and it's a fun question, so let me go there. So there's 4 people at the table. You're the first action after the blinds. You have pocket jacks. And let's say you have half the chip stack of the leader.
I love this, by the way. Is it a tournament or a cash game?
Tournament. All right. It's a tournament with a big payout. Tournament with a decent payout.
Okay. And we're down to 4 people.
There's 4 people at the table. You've got half the chip stack of the leader, and you get your cards and you got pocket jacks. Mm-hmm. All right. So you call the blinds. The next guy folds. So
I would raise. I wouldn't call.
Okay, touche. That's probably what you should do.
Well, let's say I live. Let's say the button's been raising a lot, and I call thinking he's going to raise, and then I'm going to re-raise him, but he folds.
All right, we're going with that. So everyone checks up.
Right now. They're like, I don't want to hear about poker.
Well, I want to get to know the mind of Mike Vacanti, and I think this is a fun question. And
I love it. All
right. So the blinds call, and it's you and 2 other guys. All right. The flop is a 2 of diamonds, a 9 of hearts, and a king of spades. You have a jack of diamonds and a jack of spades. How do you play that hand? What's going through your mind as you develop that strategy?
So it's a limped pot, so there's very little money in the pot here. And there's an overcard. Neither, the small blind limped. So basically, these 2 guys haven't really made any action other than not raise. So I assume they have any 2 cards, essentially. And if one of those guys bets, I would assume that he either paired up with the king or has 2 diamonds for a flush draw, could potentially have a 9, or is just bluffing to try to win a limped pot. And depending on how aggressive they've been, if they've been taking stabs at these small pots, that would determine how I react. So if one of these guys bets, I would probably call. If they both checked, I would bet, assuming that they're going to call with less than a king, call with a pair of 9s, or maybe pocket 5s or ace high or something like that.
Okay, so there's with poker, if you're really good at math, you can kind of guess the cards and where they are on the board. So did your accounting being an accountant, like, did that help you like get even better at cards? Like, were you able to count a card as illegal, but could you?
So everything is done like Microsoft Excel basically takes the role of all math.
Okay.
And the only math really needed for accounting is basic, I don't even know what the word is, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Like
Arithmetic.
You're never doing arithmetic, exactly. Not like doing algebra or anything crazy. Whereas poker is statistics, or that's like the math element of poker, is being able to calculate statistics, which is just something that I am, I don't know if I'm born with it, but it's something genetic in me that just comes very naturally, like figuring out percentages, pot odds, things like that. So accounting didn't really play a role in that now, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's a nice story. Like, this job I hated really helped me to make money playing poker, but not.
Okay, so going back to a couple questions from your blog posts. So the one there were a few that I read from back in February, because when I started the program, I was like, who's this Mike guy? All right, I'll look at On the Regimen. Let's see who he is. And I have to say, one, I am really thankful for the whole thing you did on like weighing meat raw, because I never really, like, I think for the longest time I was weighing meat already cooked, which means I was probably getting a lot more protein than I should have been getting.
Yeah. Which is just expensive, right? That's the real downside there. Like,
it is, because I always assume that, oh, it's an 8-ounce steak, so I order an 8-ounce steak at a restaurant. When they cook it, it's 8 ounces, not thinking that it's done raw. So that one kind of really helped me kind of better my macronutrient marks.
Good.
But the one I really enjoyed was when you're like, you know what, I can teach you how to drink a whole 12-pack of beer and still hit your macros, because I didn't understand how alcohol actually fit in. So how does alcohol actually affect weight loss and muscle gain? And how can we fit it into like maintenance macros? Because your post on that kind of made me go, holy crap, I can actually drink beer and not feel bad about it and hit my nutrition outlet. Yeah,
absolutely. So I wrote I think it was like a 4-part thing, just because I couldn't get it all out in one go. And let's break this up into, is this like 22-year-old Mike and Robbie at the bar getting blackout drunk together, or is this like mature Mike and Robbie having like 1 or 2 glasses of wine or beer or a cocktail on a Wednesday night?
Oh God, 22-year-old Robbie could drink until like 4 a.m. and wake up and not be hungover. Oh God, the bachelor party I went to like a month ago, I woke up, went to the gym. After I got back here, I could not do anything. I couldn't do anything. I felt like crap. And the next day had a hangover. 48 hours later.
Yeah, the 2-day hangover is rough. That'll happen if you go hard at our old age. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 28, but my wife was like, oh yeah, it only happens once you hit 30. And I'm like, you're lying to me, because I got hit by it at 28. I thought I had 2 more years, woman.
Yeah, dude, I had a 2-day hangover like 3 weeks ago, so don't feel bad about it. If we're talking about binge drinking, then there's a few things you have to realize. Like, first, you can make good decisions with alcohol by not drinking drinks that are that have a lot of calories derived from carbs or fat. So if like a straight vodka, 1.5 ounces of vodka is going to have 100 calories. But if you add 8 ounces of Coke or fruit juice or anything like that, you're getting those extra carbs. So eliminating any sugar or excess calories in your drink is one thing you can do. If we're going to get super drunk and have like 8 or 10 or 12 drinks in one night, you're not going to hit your macros for the day. Like, you can't, in theory, you bring carbs lower, you bring fats lower, and then you fill those calories with your drinks that night. But for most people, most normal size people, unless you have like 300 pounds of muscle and have the super high calorie maintenance, for most of us, we're just not going to be able to do that. So a fast following a night of intense drinking is one way to kind of offset that. keep calories a little bit lower on Friday during the day, binge drink Friday night, keep calories a little bit lower on Saturday, you're going to end up close calorically. Now, from a hormonal perspective, getting super drunk temporarily decreases testosterone levels. It may or may not impair recovery. Like there are studies that show rats who get drunk, so drunk mice or drunk rats in these studies, like it impairs their muscle protein synthesis or ability to recover, which may or may not translate into humans. But that's only if you're drinking a ton. Now, if you're like 4 to 6 drinks a week, a couple glasses of wine for a couple nights a week, really what I would do is just keep carbohydrates and fat down by whatever, 200 or 250 calories during the day, keep protein where it is, and enjoy those 2 drinks at night. There's going to be minimal hormonal effect, probably non-existent effect on recovery. Just have some water after, rehydrate, and you're going to be fine.
All right. I think alcohol is the one thing that most people I know, when they start a workout regimen or they're trying to lose weight, people are like, I can eat less bread or I can eat some more broccoli, but I don't want to give up the booze.
No.
And I feel like that's the hardest thing to kind of realize, though I do think as you get older, you kind of realize, you know what? I think I'll eat the sweet potato instead of having the 2 margaritas because I won't wake up with a hangover from a sweet potato. Though I had a sweet potato beer and oh my God, it was amazing.
Sweet potatoes are just amazing.
Yeah. So alcohol is one thing most Americans enjoy. And no, we do not drink as much as the rest of the world. Which is surprising to me because we have there's so many stories about college kids and binge drinking, and you see all the ads for beer, and yet somehow we don't even touch Europeans when it comes to ingesting alcohol. But another thing that people struggle with every single day is sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I brought this up, during the 16 weeks program, is quantity versus quality. And you wrote a great article about breaking it down that, it's better to get a quality sleep, like 6 hours of good hard sleep than 8 hours of sleep. But that sort of flies in the face of what we're told. So did you learn that through personal experience, or are there actual studies out there that kind of say, look, as long as you get a good hard sleep, you'll be fine?
So here's where that came from. Growth hormone production happens in deep sleep. So you have REM, rapid eye movement sleep, and then stages 1, 2, 3, and 4. Stages 3 and 4 are deep sleep.
Right.
So when you first fall asleep, let's assume you're just out cold for 6 hours. The first time you go into deep sleep, because there's cycles, like every 90 minutes or whatever it is. When you first fall asleep, you're in deep sleep longer in that first cycle than in your second cycle. You're in deep sleep a little bit less, and then a little bit less. So the point I was making is purely from a growth hormone production point of view. If you're waking up every hour and it keeps disrupting deep sleep, then you're actually spending more time in deep sleep if you sleep 6 straight hours than if you sleep 8 or 9 hours and wake up frequently. So that's what the quantity versus quality was. Now, obviously, if we could get, and people are different. That's the other thing you have to understand. My roommate sleeps 5 or 6 hours, and I think he sleeps really well, but is completely productive and doesn't need a night to catch up, and does really well at work and gets to the gym and he runs marathons and does all these things. He's just like, he only needs 5 or 6 hours, sometimes less. I need 8 hours of sleep, or not need, like I can get 6 for several nights in a row, but I'll be less on my game than if I had 8 hours. So from an anecdotal perspective, people are different.
Okay.
I was just gonna say the last point is that regardless, I think pretty much everyone has worse. This is for people whose goal is fat loss, because being in a calorie deficit is super difficult. People have worse adherence when they sleep less, which is partly just a factor of when you're in a deficit, you're often hungry. And if you're awake 18 hours versus 16 hours, those extra 2 hours at night are like super low willpower hours where you're more likely to snack on whatever, binge on whatever. So more sleep is going to be helpful for adhering to whatever your calories or macros or whatever your diet is.
Okay. Yeah, I think I try like an old man at 10 o'clock. I'm like, oh, it's time to go to bed. And there's a part of my brain that goes, stop being an 80-year-old man. It's 10 o'clock.
What time do you wake up?
Well, here's the crazy thing. So my alarm is set for 6. My body does one of two things. In the summer, I have to keep the door shut because if sunlight barely peeks in and bounces off the wall and like hits a small piece of skin on my forehead that's like over the covers, like my body immediately goes, oh, time to get up. But now I started to get up like half an hour, 45 minutes before my alarm goes off, which kind of pisses me off mentally because I'm like, damn it, body, you should sleep until the alarm goes off. Don't get up any earlier.
I don't know, man. Getting up and feeling good before your alarm is it's much worse than the opposite, which would be your alarm goes off and you're completely stone dead and you need to snooze it. Don't feel good.
Right. And I've started to kind of live by the, you know what, I'm going to listen to my body. If I get up at 5:30, I'm going to get up. I'm going to do my morning routine, which I just have kind of started in the last 2 weeks. I'm going to get up. I'm going to stretch, do a little yoga. I'm going to put my coffee on, and then I'm going to sit down and, do some reading for something like a fitness blog or someone else or some news. Well, actually, I stay away from news because it's depressing and the same thing every 2 weeks.
I hate the news.
It's awful. Sometimes I want to go to other countries and be like, why does our news suck? Like, you guys have good stories. Like, ESPN, like, there are times I kind of have to like force because I usually watch SportsCenter in the mornings, but I haven't been lately. But they're like, my wish segment will literally start to make me cry. And I'm like, but this is so happy. It's so much better than CNN or MSNBC or any of that other crap that just is fear mongering and whatever.
But your morning routine sounds awesome right now. I wish I could stick to something like this.
Well, there was a guy on some friends of mine have a great podcast, and guys that kind of inspired me over at Listen Money Matters. They had a guy on. His name was Hal Elrod, and the dude died twice, like in a car accident, like the same accident, like dies twice within like 15 minutes of the wreck. And he talks about
flatlines.
Do what? Yeah, flatlines, completely dead. On the scene is dead. At the hospital, they bring him back, and then he dies, and then he comes back. And his whole story was just very inspiring. And he wrote a book called The Morning Ritual or the Miracle Morning Routine or Ritual or something. And he talks about how he takes an hour. So for 10 minutes, he does 6 things. Like, he stretches, he does a little workout. He takes 10 minutes in silence and just sits there and breathes. He does 10 minutes of writing, 10 minutes of something productive, and then like 10 minutes of gratitude is what he practices. Mm-hmm. And it made me think, man, you know what? I actually could do some good in the morning, getting up and doing some stretching and doing some reading or something. So I started to do that, and it's made the day a little better. Until I realized at 7:15, oh crap, I actually got to go to work. I guess I should get dressed now.
Yeah, but you feel good. You got things done. I think it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's been good. So a couple more here. So one of the articles that I really loved, you talked about internal versus external validation. Mm-hmm. And, with the new year coming up, a lot of people are going to be wanting to get in shape. They're going to make New Year's resolutions. They're going to make promises that this year, that 2015 will be different. And I think for America, we're so externally driven by, oh, the neighbor's got a new car. Well, I guess they got a raise. I got to make more than Ted now because he got this Lexus. And he probably bought that Lexus on a huge amount of credit and is going to, but that's a whole different thing. But we externally validate ourselves through so much as opposed to go ahead.
Let me interrupt super quickly. Like this, it can't be just an American thing, by the way. Like I think there are other amazing places in the world that might be progressing better, but like this is a human thing, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
The question is, how do you nudge clients or anyone to start looking at happiness internally as opposed to externally? But you make a good point, Mike, that it's not just an American thing. It's all over the world. I mean, look at people who stand in line for a brand new iPhone. And I wrote a post on the website, and I left it up for SideQuest because I felt it kind of matters that, I'm looking at these phones and I want to get a new phone and I'm obsessing over it, but it's just a phone. Do I need to be connected to the internet anymore? Like, can't I just get a cheap phone? Why has it got to be this new shiny object?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And does it matter? It doesn't matter. What are other things that matter? And I don't think that Americans are the only ones that struggle with it. Unfortunately, my experience is only American.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good question.
Is the iPhone 6 that much better than the iPhone 4 that you need to upgrade, even though it's going to cost you X dollars, which is a meaningful amount of money? I completely empathize with you.
Yeah, I do have to say that the bigger phone is kind of nice. It is nice.
If I'm trying to get a client in the right mindset, I always start with why. And this often happens with my online coaching clients in the first time they have a slip up, which is often in the first 6 to 21 days, call it. In the first, they get through maybe the first Monday through Friday, and then sometime between then and week 3, there might be a slip up, and they might feel bad, and they might be second guessing the approach, and they weighed themselves after their slip up, and they're actually a pound heavier than when they started. As we know, scale weight can move 3 to 5% plus of body weight based on carbs and water. But they're thinking about throwing in the towel. They don't know if they really want it, etc. I always ask why. Why do you want it? What do you want? Whether it's to lose weight, be stronger, feel better, be able to move, look better. But why do you want those things? Is it coming from a place of, I want to actually be able to hang out with my kids and not get tired. I don't want to die at 60. I want to live longer. Or is it, I want abs so Jenny from class likes me, because right now she likes this big jock guy, and if I only had this body, then I could be with this girl, or then so-and-so person would think more highly of me. Because if the reasons are externally, if your motivation or validation's coming externally, it's fleeting. It's not going to last very long.
So I guess my question is, what do you say to someone who is so externally motivated? Because I don't think there are aspects where I think externally motivated is a good idea. Arnold says, he put all of these photos up of those guys from those bodybuilding shows because he wanted to look like them. So you could say that's external because he's putting up, a photo. It's like saying, I'm going to put up this mansion. I want to live in that mansion. Mm-hmm. But it's also internal, as well, because it does provide internal motivation. So I guess, how do you kind of get someone to kind of work through the external to see the internal? Is there a way to do that?
So I for Arnold in that situation, I think that is more, it's coming from a place of inspiration more than a place of seeking approval, right?
Right.
Like those pictures are for that. I mean, it comes down to the book that I recommend, that I used to recommend all the time, that I still recommend, but it's from 2013, which is aligning your personal values with the actions you take.
Okay.
So rather than wanting something because you think other people will be impressed, or because because it will get, like, this picture will get me more likes on this social media site, to do it because it's part of who you actually are and what you believe in. I don't know. Was that
No,
clear?
that's a great answer. That if it's, I'll be honest, there was a big part of me, and I think everyone struggles with this, especially in your teenage years, where you're like, I want to look like this guy, or I want to do this because I want someone to love me for who I am, and you want that feeling of mattering to someone. And it took me a long time to kind of realize, that I don't have to do this or that to impress others. If I do it for me,
I think that's something most people struggle with in their teenage years.
yeah.
Hey guys, just a little break here. Had some technical difficulties here on the last few questions with Mike. So you will hear his answers, but my questions will sound a little different, as if they are not at the same time as the interview, because I had to re-record them. Apologize for the issues, but the internet sometimes just wants to get a little funky. So who is your favorite hockey player of all time?
Ooh, of all time. Mario Lemieux. My dad was actually, so my dad played goalie and was at the Penguins rookie camp in 1985 with Lemieux, and ended up like being the backup. And then when he got bumped down to the farm team, not playing. But I loved the Penguins when I was really young. And my mom always tells this story. She thinks it's hilarious. I don't know why I'm repeating it now. I hate it when she tells it. But when I was 8 or whatever, the first time Lemieux retired, I had like a disposable camera, and I was in front of our giant, block TV, taking pictures of the TV of his last game, because I was like crying, and I was all depressed about it. But yeah, Mario Lemieux.
So you had a post on your website about weighing food. Is there a shortcut that people can utilize if they don't have a scale with them to weigh food?
Yeah, there are shortcuts, but it's contextual, right? And it comes through practice. So a deck of cards of cooked meat is equal to about 4 ounces of raw meat. Vegetables that derive more than, say, a third of their calories from fiber, so broccoli, cauliflower, the free veggies, the 12 to 15, spinach, things like that, I wouldn't count. I guess that's kind of a little hack. Other than that, I just estimate serving size and then Google it. So if it looks like about this much rice, like if it's about a cup of cooked rice, then I'll punch that into Google and see what it spits out, or a tracker. I don't know. I'm old school. I Google it, and then I write it down or put it in a notepad.
So Mike, you're a big fan of Ben and Jerry's. So double part question here. What flavor do they need to bring back from their graveyard? And what flavor is your favorite of all time?
Okay. So what they need to bring back, they shouldn't even do limited editions, because some aren't even that great, and people would they just wouldn't sell a ton of them, and then they could remove them. Or they have limited editions like Scotchy Scotch, which was had Will Ferrell on there, and after I think the new Anchorman was released, they brought it back for limited edition. That is amazing. They should bring that back. It's still probably not in my top 7, but it's very good. My favorite of all time is, so I like Cherry Garcia because Cherry Garcia and Half Baked are diverse from a macro point of view, because you can get froyo or ice cream, meaning you can use them on a training day or sometimes a rest day or a cheat day. but the best tasting are cinnamon buns and cheesecake brownie.
So the next question I have to preface with a story. When I was on Roman's 16 Weeks to Sexiness program, someone brought up Star Wars, and Mike here had to unfortunately admit to Roman that he had never seen Star Wars. So Roman immediately told him to go watch them or his job was on the line. So I have to ask Mike, what was your favorite Star Wars film?
This is so embarrassing. You guys, you're gonna hate me. So I enjoyed the first one, and during Empire Strikes Back, I tried to watch it like 4 times, and I could not get into it. I know, it's like, you hate me so much right now. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know if it's like the technology was too outdated by now and I couldn't get into it or what, but I literally tried to watch Empire Strikes Back and I couldn't.
So Mike, last question for you here. In a few of your posts, you talk a lot about death, and you even had a new post up a few days ago where you talk about living to the max and how you thought about going down on a plane that was kind of going through some turbulence. So a lot of people may find that kind of morbid, but the thought of death is something that a lot of us do at some point in our lives think about. So I wanted to ask, why are you so fascinated with the thought of death, and how does that motivate you?
So it doesn't intrigue me. It just is on my mind. And I think by definition, thinking about death all of the time is morbid. Like if people were like, that's really morbid, I think I would just be like, yeah, I think it's the definition of the word. But it's been something that I thought about and was afraid of when I was younger, like dating back to probably being in like grade school. And I never brought up to anyone. I never like talked about it because I thought it was weird and because I didn't know if other people thought about it and fear of judgment, yada, yada, etc. Living in my own head, whatever. But once I reframed it as this thing that happens to all of us and that no one ever talks about, but it's a certainty, and regardless of what you believe or your religion or anything, we don't know what's going to happen. Like no one knows for certain if there's an afterlife, or like if it all just goes blank, or if the soul rises up, or da-da-da, like if you believe in Jesus or what, like anything. We don't know what happens when we die. What we do know is that we get a certain limited, unknown number of years to live and to affect other people and to do good things and to have this thing called life. And wasting any time it's like in my opinion, the worst thing you can do, right? It's a huge gift. By being born, you won the lottery of, like, from a biological point of view. And yeah, so death motivates me to be absolutely me and be the best person that I can be and to positively impact other people as much as I can every single day. I've never talked about it. Like, I've talked about it with buddies and stuff, and like I have a memento mori, like counting down the. This sounds so morbid, even to me, but like in my room, it's like 52. It's a grid, and it's 52 boxes across and 80 down, and like you blacken out each box, and that's 1 week of your life, and it kind of gives you perspective. Like, this is how much time I have, and like if I have. I mean, not really friends, but like if girls are ever in my room, they'll see it and be like, what is that? And then I tell them and they're just like, what the hell's wrong with you, guy? Like, it's something on my mind. It's something that's important to me, and it's something that has made me a much better person.
All right, I think that's a great place to kind of take the show out. So, Mike, if people want to know more about Mike Vacanti, where can they find you online?
If you Google my name, my website comes up first. It's called On the Regimen, which I'm starting to think is a pretty average name, and I might just go to myname.com. But yeah, On the Regimen or just Google.
Again, I want to thank Mike for coming on the show, and listeners, please check him out. You can find him at ontheregimen.com. Links will be in the show notes as well. And you can find him on Instagram if you want to follow him there, again, at ontheregimen, and Twitter at the same place. So, Mike, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you so much. He was voted one of the top 5 people in the fitness industry, taking it by storm by Fitocracy. So please, guys, check him out. He has a lot of great stuff and one of the best online fitness coaches that there is in the biz today.